Hi, welcome to day 2 of the Personal Freedom Blueprint. Wow, day 1 was amazing. It's interesting, the rest of the videos I'll be doing before I see all the comments, but today I saw all your comments yesterday, and I'm blown away by the level of awareness, the courage, the willingness to confront some truths within yourself and just noticing it. And really, the beauty of this program is you can go back and listen to the videos again, and sometimes that can be valuable because there can be new insights and new awarenesses as we go through it. But today we're going to be going a little bit more into this freedom concept and looking at how do we practice it? How do we start to get engaged with freedom as a concept in our life? And so as we start to explore this, it's useful yesterday to start noticing on that assessment that you did for yourself, what were the surprises? What were the things that you had thought one thing, but when you sat down and reflected on it, there was another aspect going on. Where are you freer than you thought you were? All of those things become useful. And we need to know with those assessments like you did yesterday that this is a fluid concept, isn't it? It's not something that's static, that remains like that forever. And so I encourage you to use that assessment at intervals through the year, just as a stop check, as a place to notice where I am. And you can use some of that information on your blueprint that we're creating. So at this point, it's useful to start thinking about that sort of one pager that you're going to put it together at the end, or that aspect in your journal, or something that's going to be the anchor point. What are the insights and awarenesses that you want to make sure you don't lose through the 5 days? The nuggets of gold that are moving you. And it moves you because it disturbs some inner story and it shifts something. So really take note of those. And as we start today, again, I'm going to encourage you to do your freedom mind map. So to continue with that mind mapping exploration of what's coming up for you through this journey. So if you need to pause here and get a piece of paper so that you can make some notes for yourself and comments for yourself as we go through today's video, then please do that. So yesterday, you would have seen, I love this quote, and for those of you that it offends, I apologize. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. From Joe Klaus, 12 Steps to Happiness. And so we've got this relationship between, we talk about the truth will set you free. The reality is the truth is disturbing for many of us. And truth is an interesting word because it doesn't mean that there's been an honesty or a lie beforehand. Truth is when we look in the mirror and we see something that we have probably been avoiding for some time. And so when we face these truths, first of all, piss you off because it's going to mean like you have to own something, confront something. And so some of you may start feeling that as we're going through this journey, is what are the truths that I need to confront? And there's a definite relationship between freedom and truth. We can't live in the illusion of our own stories and our own beliefs that may be impeding our ability to feel free. So just play around with that and allow the emotions that are coming up to be parts of your experience. Please allow yourself permission to not interrogate everything, but to be curious about what gets disturbed in this process for you. So freedom, as we've been talking about it, relates to this 5 energy. And when I started to put together the content for all of this and for Soul Compass, one of the things that I'm truly drawn to is sacred geometry. Some of you will know that, and also to mandalas. And whenever I start off a year, there's a channeling of a mandala that comes forward. This year, there was a few more. And so what you see in front of you is what has been called the Freedom Mandala. And so we've got the 5-pointed star, which is a pentagram or the pentacle. The pentacle means it's got the circle around it. And that is a very misunderstood symbol. It's often thought of to be quite associated with a lot of negativity, or the sort of underground movements, the atheism, the Wicca, etc., etc. But the truth is the 5-pointed star really represents our connection to spirit. So if we have a look at this top triangle being sort of the connection of our crown chakra to spirit. We've got our sort of arms outstretched. You can think of the Leonardo da Vinci, I almost said Leonardo DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci, what's it, the man that's standing there, I can't remember the word now, it doesn't matter, and with our feet out. And so we've got the pentacle actually means I'm connected to source and I'm grounded in truth. I'm connected to source and I'm grounded in truth. And often when the pentacle, the pentagram, is used to represent something else, it is turned upside down. So if you imagine flipping that image that's in front of you upside down now, you'll see that we've got the two sort of legs in the air that become the horns, and then our head in the ground. And so this whole freedom journey is, breaking free of the illusions, looking at where do we have our head in the ground? What are the things that we've been believing that may not be serving us? And how do we flip it around? How do we shift it so that I can see the light, so I can work with it? And so this freedom mandala is a beautiful mandala to work with, to connect in with your own illusions, to notice what is it that you're being confronted with in terms of things that you are feeling trapped by, that are maybe not necessarily accurate for you anymore. And that doesn't mean we need to judge that they were. Everything serves in our journey and in our path. And so part of the handouts for today, and it was in the pre-work as well, is this mandala for you to color in. And I really encourage you to sit and play with it and work with it and see what comes up for you as you connect with the imagery in this freedom mandala. And this freedom aspect, if we look at the key message that comes forward with this, and this sort of holds an anchor point for us to start explore freedom, is detach from anything holding you back. And I love these words that came through when I channeled information around this mandala. Each mandala that I'm going to be showing you today has a message that was channeled and an invocation that you can use, and you can use them in various different ways. Freedom is an internal state of grace and acceptance. Freedom is an internal state of grace and acceptance. It is the power to feel that you're able to respond to life from a place of true free will. This is the gift given to us on earth. So we often hear about this concept of free will, but the truth is, do we embrace our own free will? And this starts to bring in mind some of our own relationship with authority and order and constructs on earth, is we have the free will to work with those things. When we're in the energy of defiance or compliance, as in I tell you to do something and you feel like, well, I have to, or I'm just not going to, screw you kind of thing. That defiance and compliance is not free will. That's not choice. That's still about the external thing. If the road sign says 60, I get to choose whether I obey that or not. And I can be free in my obeying. I don't have to be trapped and I have to, or I'm going to get into trouble. That's my relationship with sort of sense of order in the world. And are there some rules that are ridiculous? Yes. And then I can make the choice to not necessarily follow it because it does not make sense or logic to me. But there's a certain sense of order that is in the world to give structure so that we, people can live together. Some of it's logical, some of it's not, some of it's useful, some of it's not. The point of what we're talking about here is more your relationship with it is quite important. That you get trapped with it when you're in the I must comply or I will defy you. But when I go into the free will, that I'm able to respond to whatever's happening from a state of grace and acceptance, I am free. And that is quite magical, isn't it? That in itself starts to mean that we release the attachment to the things that trigger us, that get us all up in arms. Now, this does not mean not standing up for what you believe. It doesn't mean not walking your truth. We'll see in the days that follow. Those are really important principles. But notice where you get hooked into arguments that are maybe not useful. They're maybe not serving anything. Yeah? Because fighting never brought about peace. Fighting never brought about peace. And there's a relationship between freedom and peace. So this freedom anchor point, this information that's coming forward as to noticing my relationship with my own free will and taking responsibility for, I get to choose. I get to choose. We can start to see that freedom is something that we need to practice rather than own. Now, we must be free, not because we claim freedom, but because we practice it. And so what's the actions of freedoms? What's the mindset of freedom? What's the heart of freedom? And for those of you that have done the meditation, which is again part of today's, it's going to be part of every day's, is I encourage you to do the meditation more than once. Allow yourself to completely immerse yourself in that beautiful, gentle energy of feeling what this is and coming up with the one step of what I'm going to do to practice freedom today. And so when we look at the anchor points of freedom, there are 5 principles that have come forward that are the principles of freedom, the ways that we practice freedom in our days and our weeks and our months. And so at this point, I'm going to ask you to kind of pick a number, 1 to 5, just trust your intuition, a little bit like picking a card, and just notice which number comes up. As you pick the number, you can notice, is this the number that you're most needing information around to support you, or is this something you're most resistant to? Just notice that. Pick a number. Am I picking this number because that's what I need to support me, or because that's what I'm resistant to? Just allow yourself to notice that, because I'm going to then take you through the 5 principles, and you can start to notice for yourself what are the key messages. All 5 principles are going to be important to you. All 5 principles have wisdom to share with you, but there may be some that are more important for each of you as we go along. So the 5 principles of freedom, and each of them have their own mandala associated with it, is fantasy, foundation, flow, focus, and fierceness. Yes, they all start with F. Very clever the way channels work. So fantasy, foundation, flow, focus, and fierceness. And as you look at the images and the words on the page in front of you, or on the screen in front of you more specifically, you can start to notice what draws you in and what you resist. Those of you that have done Soul Compass before, it's a great reminder for you to connect in with some of this energy and notice any shifts or changes and or what's on repeat for you. So I'm going to take you through these 5 principles, and as we go through them, you can get to explore them. Some of you will be the lucky winners of winning a pack that has all these mandalas in it, as well as the invocations and channeled messages and coloring pages for each of them. But if you don't win it, it is available on my website if you'd like to work with these. They're amazing to work with at the moment. So let's start with fantasy. First principle of freedom is fantasy. What is your relationship with make-believe? What is your relationship with possibility? One of the key words for 2021 is reimagine reality. That means let's not imagine it, let's reimagine it. And so this starts to be, if I dream of a life where I have an abundance of money in my bank account, it's a dream, it's a fantasy, it's a desire, it's a wish. Is there a part of my mind that goes, oh, that's not possible, it's just never going to happen, etc., etc.? Has the responsibility in you, the adults in you, the part of you that wants to perform well, squashed the part of you that can dream and imagine possibilities? The number 1 principle for freedom is to entertain your desires. To entertain your desires, particularly the desires of the heart. I work with a spiritual teacher named Angela, and she has a lovely way of talking about this. And she says we must notice the distinction between desire and require. When I require something, I'm getting attached to it. When I desire something, I open up to the possibility that that may be part of my world. And so your own relationship with imagination, curiosity, playfulness, which is why we see this return to innocence. That childlike wonder of make-believe is we cannot create what we want if we can't imagine it being a part of our world. If there's a part of us that's trying to be responsible or, clever or, not idealistic, that part of us can bully ourselves into a life that is quite a struggle. And so how do you imagine what it is that you wish for? And you'll see the exercise we're going to do today for your soul blueprint is going to touch into that. And I love the words here. The world is full of possibility and magic. Anything is possible if you allow yourself to dream and fantasize. We encourage you to connect your mind, body, heart, and spirit towards the fantasies of your soul. What do you most desire? Not require, desire. And just even notice your relationship with that word. What do you desire? And so one of the things you can start to notice is, do you have permission to entertain your desires, to express them, to ask for them, to allow them to be a rich part of your world inside, the fantasy world? We're not escaping. This is not an escapist mindset. This is a connecting mindset. I'm going to connect with that which I most desire. I'm going to imagine it. I'm going to step into the energy of it. So that's principle number 1, fantasy. Principle number 2 is foundation. You can have a look here at all of these align with the 5 energy. We've got this interwoven set of stability. And foundation is about small actions. I promise you, you cannot create anything if you do not take action. The willingness to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, to act. And so you've all done that this week. You've shown up, you're taking action, you're sitting here, you're doing the exercises. Whatever you give time, money, energy, and attention to is what you're going to create. And tiny actions can lead to huge things. So often we sit here and we look at our fantasies and we say, oh, it's so big. It's so, it's just in the future. There's just nothing I can do. What's the one small step you can take today towards creating that life? That's why the meditation that you've been given is so valuable to act on. Is in that meditation, it asks you, what's the one small thing you're going to do today that is aligned to the frequency of freedom for you? And if we don't act, if we're always thinking, planning, plotting, wishing, hoping, we are never going to create. And tomorrow we'll talk a lot about the act of creation. Whatever you invest time in creating will create you. Isn't that a beautiful line? Whatever you invest time in creating will create you. And this does go into playful creation as well, by the way. When I put together these mandalas, I had no idea what they were about. I sat in the, here at my partner's dining room table and just played. And as I played, they manifested into this great wisdom, these great teachings. Whatever you invest time in creating will create you. The third principle is, how do you flow with life? Now, remember we said freedom is that internal state of grace and acceptance. Principle 3 is really asking, how do you step into allowing life to unfold? You may have a fantasy, you may be taking action, and then there may be a whole lot of synchronistic divine miracles that step in between. But if you're very attached to the way you think things should be, you may never receive the miracles of the way things are. Flow does not mean everything is as you want or expect it to be. Flow is a state of non-resistance. In the meditation, you access the state of non-resistance. You play with what that feels like. It is willingness to work with the current moment as it is and not wish it to be different in any way. And still have goals and dreams, just flow with the process of it manifesting in its own magical way. The process of surrender, the process of allowing, the process of receiving, these are key energies. So I may be able to fantasize. I may even be able to take action, but I may not be able to truly just let go of allowing it to manifest. to step into like, oh, what's that? And when doors close, let me go another way. When doors open, let me walk through those doors. This is a presence activity. This is about being present to life and allowing life to work with you. It is truly now starting to step into the co-creating phase of freedom. Yeah. Principle 4 is focus. How easily are you distracted from what is good for you? You know, how many of you have put on your list of, I must do the meditation, I must do the video, I must do the mind map, but you don't do it because you get distracted. There's things to do on Facebook, there's email, there's people asking. Whatever you give attention to, you're creating. And the difficulty with focus is we live in a world that is full of pulls, full of distractions. And so focus has two key components, clarity and boundaries. Yesterday, some of you were the lucky winners of the Law of Clarity webinar that I did. Clarity is the ability to see clearly, to work through all the bullshit. And so that's what's clear for me. And then boundaries. Boundaries has to be, so this, we're starting to get tricky now. And we can fantasize, we can take some action, we can flow, but now we need to get clear about what is important and what is not. And when you set boundaries, not everybody's going to like it. Boundaries includes saying no. So one of the reasons boundaries are so challenging for us is because often we're people pleasers. We want to make sure everybody's happy. And also, we are accommodating other people's needs more than our own. The other challenge of focus is many of us are really, really battle at committing to ourselves, at committing to what I want, what's important to me, and finding the harmony and integration and balance of being able to fit in other people's desires and needs with my own. The people I love also have desires and needs, and we can integrate these. But it requires conversation, it requires clarity. It requires us being able to speak and say, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is not about being unselfish and uncaring towards others, but clear about dedicating time to what you want to create. And so we start to notice here with this focus mandala that our relationship with time becomes really important. Do we use time as an excuse? You know, are we giving time to things that don't support our life? How are you using time in your world to create the freedom you wish for? So that's principle 4. And principle 5, some of you may like this, some of you may not, fierceness. And this aligns with the Be Brave card. Be Brave is one of the 2021 cards that we'll be talking about on Thursday. To be open-hearted and centered in your choices and decisions is the light of a brave warrior's soul. It is about the freedom to live your life unapologetically, showing off the genius that is you. This is about claiming your life as yours to live with purpose, passion, and drive. This is truly about embracing your power. This is not about aggression. This is not about arguing. This is not about fighting your way forward. This is about being fully and authentically the most powerful version of you can be. And when you embrace your fantasies, take action towards what you want, flow with life, and give focus to what's important to you, fierceness becomes, you know, when we see somebody who say, oh, she's so fierce, but not as in I'm scared of her, as in that is so inspirational. There's like a glow, there's like a centeredness, there's a sense of internal authority. It just is magnificent. And so principle 5, fierceness is often the culmination of being in alignment with all the other principles. This is about living authentically aligned with your values, saying what you want to say, being true to what's important to you in a deeply, deeply integrated, authentic way. This is the principle of fierceness. So we introduce you to these 5 principles of freedom as a function of fantasy, foundation, flow, focus, and fierceness. Oh, I spelled fierceness, firesomeness. We can use firesomeness as a great acronym for fierceness. And so the question for you today to focus on and to post on the video if you want to enter into the draw, but even if you don't want to enter into the draw, just posting your comments on the video really it creates a network and it's beautiful community that's forming. And you know, certainly as I read through your comments, it inspires me to pay attention to some of my stuff. And I think the same happens for all of us. Is which principle is one that you most need to pay attention to at this point in time? So maybe I need to pay attention to the principle of flow. And so what does that mean for me? So which is the principle you need to pay attention to, and what does that mean to you? And please feel free to share any awarenesses and or questions that are coming up for you today. So the exercises for today, it's freedom mind map. So continue with the mind map the way we're doing. The next, and this is a really, really important step, is I'd like you to collect pictures that feel like freedom to you. Collect pictures that feel like freedom to you. So this does not need to be a logical thing. So it doesn't need to be finding somebody out of jail, or it doesn't mean to find somebody in a bank. I could look at a picture that is of a child and I feel free. So I want you to access that heart-centered feeling of freedom. Now, you can use magazines for this if that's something you've got. You're more than welcome to just Google images. You don't need to print them all out at this point. Just create a folder and a file where you put images there. You could use Canva, you could use Pinterest, you can use Google. You can look at pieces of artwork around your house. You may have photographs of places or things that you've done. You may have your own sort of doodles. It's any visual representation, something visual that connects you to the feeling of freedom. And I'd like you to connect a minimum of 10 pictures, maximum of 30. If you get more than that, you're going to start getting overwhelmed. So a minimum of 10 to a maximum of 30 images that feel like freedom to you. This is a really important step for us to create the blueprints at the end. So allow yourself to play with this now. And notice the synchronistic divine intervention today. There may be images that come up on your social media feeds or into your inbox or certain things. They just feel like freedom to you. Set that intention and play with the divine a little bit that way. And then the last thing you can do if you'd like to is work with the Freedom Mandala. You can color in the Freedom Mandala. I will have it on the link for you today again. Right, so today's giveaways, and congratulations to those that won yesterday. One person will win a Freedom Crystal Grid. So Nicolette from Step Into Your Light Cottage has converted the Freedom Mandala into a crystal grid. So if you work with crystals, you put the crystals on here to make your own crystal grid. One of you will receive one of those and it'll be couriered to you with a goodie bag from the Step Into Your Light Cottage. Thank you, Nicolette, again for sponsoring that. One person will win a set of LightWalker cards, the My Card deck. 3 people will access the Evolve Law of Flow webinar, and 3 people will win the 2021 Mandala set. So that's a full set of all the mandalas in color and in black and white for you to work with however you want to print or use on your screen. So there you have it. Here's to your freedom. I'm inspired by you. I'm in awe of you, and I'm honored to be sharing this journey with you. And I will see you tomorrow. Namaste.